And I still remember, I quickly thought this. Well, if I say yes, they'll like me and accept me. And if I say no, they won't. So I did. And that led me to do other things that I never thought I would do. And then this kind of spilled over into my college years. And because of my personality style, I'm kind of like an all or nothing person. And so, I do something and then I get approval from it, man, and I just start cranking it up another notch and another notch and another notch. Now, if you would have asked me back then, if you would have said, hey, are you drinking and doing those other things to fit in? I would have denied it and said, no, that's not why I'm doing it. But looking back now, this is exactly why I was doing it. Now, we think we grow out of that into our adulthood years, but the reality is we don't grow out of that. I can remember graduating from college, I got a job, and as a result, I had to move once again to a new city, had no friends, was by myself again, and I just reverted back to the same things I did in high school and college, and for the exact same reason. I wanted to fit in. And so as adults, it's the same thing, but many times it's just a different audience. People pleasing. Let me give you 4 ways that you can tell that you struggle with people pleasing. And you may not struggle with all these, but if you struggle with a few of them, you can tell that you struggle with people pleasing. Here's the first one. You act differently based on who you're around. Now, I have a name for this. I call this the chameleon effect. Now, what does a chameleon do? Well, one of the things a chameleon does is it changes colors, okay? It changes a color because it's hoping to attract a potential mate. And so if this color works, it'll do this one. If this color works, then it'll change to that one. And this is how many of us, we live our lives. It's like, you act one way around one group of people, and then you act another around a different group of people. And so it's like, you're around your ridge group and your church friends and you act one way, and then you're around your neighbors or your college buddies, golfing buddies, and you act a different way. Why? Because you want to fit in. Here's a second way that you struggle with it. You just take things too personally. It's like you post something on social media, and then it's like 20 seconds later you're going, hey, did anyone view that? Well, why or why not? Did they like it? I wonder why they didn't like it. Or you post a selfie and you're looking at the comments and you see one comment, and it's kind of a general comment, but you view it through a negative lens. Or you do something, this is a big one for me, you do something and you can get 10 positive compliments about it, and then you get one critical one and it just sends your mind spiraling. Research shows that most of us do not have anyone in our lives that has the freedom to speak truth in our lives. Because they've tried it, this is how most of it's played out, because they've tried it and we've got defensive or we've got over emotional about it, and so what they've said is, I'm done, I'm not going there anymore. And the primary reason for this is that we don't want to think that there's anything wrong with us, because if you kind of follow the trail, then we think that other people will think that there's something wrong with us. But we don't want anybody to think bad of us. And so as a result, we don't invite people into that sort of relationship. Third way that you struggle with this whole idea of people pleasing is you tell what we call white lies. Now, we all know what a white lie is, right? It's just a itty-bitty small exaggeration of the truth. Just for the record, a lie is a lie, okay? Lies always break trust. And if you feel the need to lie, that's a warning sign inside of you that something is wrong. And in this context, it's a sign that you are trying to please people. This is actually this idea of white lies, this might surprise you. This is actually a big thing in the pastor world, especially the lead pastor world. This is actually one that pastors struggle with quite a bit, this idea of people pleasing. And you get a bunch of lead pastors together, and they want to fit in and they want to be accepted by each other. And one of the ways you see this play out is that we try to make ourselves look good, and the main way we try to do that is we try to inflate the size of the church that we lead. In fact, there's even a name for that. It's called pastor math. And what pastor math is, it's kind of fascinating. Pastor math, we always round up. In fact, Jody, our executive pastor, a number will be thrown out. I'll say something. She goes, "Is that pastor's math?" Or is that the real number? And it's the idea of, because we always round up. And so you get a group of pastors together, and someone will say, hey, how you doing? I'll say, oh, good. Hey, how big is your church now? Oh, it's near 1,000. But it's really about 500, and then technically, not lying and all that stuff. And I can remember, so when I first became a lead pastor, I came from the corporate world, okay? And so I was an outsider, felt like an outsider, and I so desperately wanted to fit in. And so I learned this whole thing of pastor math. I thought, man, this is really cool, it's not even considered lying, it's just kind of normal. And so, I started to use this for a while. Then I started just to realize, man, this is just not a really good thing. And now I don't say anything, even if it's a really good thing. And for many of us, we live with our own version of pastor math. And so it's like you're talking to someone, and they're like, hey, how's your kid doing in school? And you're like, oh, they have nearly a 4.0, and they have really a 3.0. Or they're going, hey, how's your marriage doing? And you're like, great. But you know what the reality is? It's not all that great. Social media really does this. It really highlights this because, we post mostly our highlights, and they're mostly true. But we want people to look at us and go, man, they have a really great life. But the reality is, our life isn't all that great. Fourth and final way. You struggle with people pleasing, and this is a big one. You just have a hard time saying no. Someone comes up to you and they say, hey, do you want to come over on Friday night? And you're already overcommitted, okay? But you say, sure. And then you walk away from that conversation. You're like, oh man, why did I say yes? And the reason why you can't say no is because you're afraid of upsetting that other person. But what ends up happening is on the inside, you begin to feel a deep resentment towards people. Christian rapper Lecrae. Now, I just be honest with you, I'd love to have that title, Christian rapper, okay? Rapper anything, okay? Christian rapper Lecrae, he says this. He says, if you live for people's acceptance, you will die from their rejection. In other words, it's a miserable way to live your life. Going, I need to make that person happy, I need to make that person happy, I need to make that person happy. Oh, wait a minute, that person is not happy with me, and so what do I need to do to make sure that they're happy with me? But do you know the one person who will not be happy in all this? You. Now, please hear me on this. I'm not saying that we should adopt this attitude of, well, I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. Listen, that's not what this is about. In fact, if you have that attitude, you need to go back to week 2 of I've Got Issues, because that's what that is laced in. But the reality is there is something inside all of us where we're afraid or we wish that we'll be included, that we'll be liked, that we'll be accepted, that we won't be made fun of. And that emotion runs so deep that it can cause us to do things that God would never want us to do. In fact, here's a definition of people pleasing. I think this just says it so well. It says people pleasing is this: is doing what you think others want rather than what God wants. In other words, you're so concerned with what other people want, you do what you think they want instead of what God wants.